With permission of the House, perhaps we can take up all of them at one time. You really don't want to do this one at a time.
Without objection.
107 to 130. They are budget trailer bills, members? Or do we? It's fine, but.
Senator Duchesne, what we will do is take up file item 107 first. We will get a roll call vote on it, and then later we can substitute the roll call.
Fine. Thank you.
Secretary, please read 107.
Senate Bill 1069 by the Committee on Budget, an accolade to the Budget Act of 2008.
Thank you very much, Madam President and members. These are, and I anticipating Senator McClintock's objection, they are spot bills, but they are the trailer bills that we need to send to the Senate to expedite the budget process, to the Assembly to expedite the budget process so that they can be amended when we determine the final outline of the budget. The Assembly will be sending a like number of similar bills to our House for us to amend should that be necessary as well during the budget process. It is a technical matter, and we'd ask for your aye vote today.
Any discussion or debate? Senator McClintock.
Madam President and members of the Senate, every time I rise, and this is the 8th consecutive speech that I have made in protest of this process, I have senators coming up to me after saying, you're absolutely right, we need to change that next year. In fact, I think Senator Parada every year says that on the floor. This is a complete abandonment of the traditional role of the Senate in developing public policy. Conference committees were never designed and never intended to draft legislation. That is the responsibility of this House. It is the responsibility of the Assembly to independently draft that legislation. The only traditional jurisdiction of a conference committee is to resolve the differences between the two houses before the measure goes to the governor. 6 people acting on behalf of the 120 elected representatives of the people of California have never been empowered in the Constitution to take on the role that they have in recent years. Senator Duchesne says this expedites the budget process. No, it completely short-circuits the budget process. It completely removes the Senate and the Assembly from the budget process, abrogating our responsibilities and placing it in the hands of this 6-member conference committee that once again was never designed to do this. This is my last protest on this subject, so let me just add one other thing. Senator Batten is often worried that we now have a generation of legislators who don't remember the way it used to be done when we produced relatively balanced and relatively punctual budgets year after year. We followed the traditional constitutional process. This is a complete abandonment of that process. The conference committee is there. If the Senate on a line item says we want $10 million for this project and the Assembly says we want $5 million for this project, the only legitimate jurisdiction of the conference committee is where between 10 and $5 million do we end up. We don't go over 10, we don't go under 5, and we certainly don't rewrite a completely different project into it. That's the way it's supposed to work. And ladies and gentlemen, it worked well. It worked extremely well when we followed it. The abandonment of that process has ushered in the era of wildly unbalanced budgets and wildly late budgets, and the reason for that is because those budgets have not had the scrutiny of each House independent of the other, and because this is all being deferred to a conference committee, there are no longer the bipartisan compromises that used to go on at subcommittee levels, when it was understood that the votes of those subcommittees, the votes of those committees, and the votes here on the floor actually meant something. This is a terrible wrong turn in the traditions and the procedures of the legislature. I urge you, please, to consider what you're doing to the process of governance that each of us was elected to protect and preserve.
Senator Duchesne, you may close.
Madam President, this is not doing anything with conference, and this is not the budget bill. These are the bills that would be necessary to implement statutory changes that come out of the discussions that Senator McClintock's referring to in both houses. We will have Assembly vehicles. It expedites the question of concurrence or non-concurrence because we have Assembly bills to amend, and the Assembly will have Senate bills to amend. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Secretary, call the roll.
Onnested. No. Ackerman. Alquist. Aye. Ashburn. Batten. Calderon. Aye. Cedillo. Aye. Cogdill. Aye. Corbett. Aye. Correa. Aye. Cox. No. Denham. Ducheney.
Aye.
Aye. Dutton. Aye. Flores. Harmon. Aye. Hollingsworth. No. Kehoe. Aye. Kuehl. Aye. Lowenthal. Aye. Machado. Aye. Maldonado. Marquette. No. McClintock. No. Migden. Aye. Negrete McLeod. Aye. Oropesa. Aye. Padilla. Aye. Parada. Aye. Ridley Thomas. Romero. Aye. Runner. Scott. Aye. Semidian. Aye. Steinberg. Aye. Torlakson. Aye. Vincent. Wiggins. Aye. Wyland. No. Yee. Yee. Aye. Ashburn. No.
Ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. Without objection, we are going to substitute the roll call on the remaining items. File item 109. I'm sorry, file item 108, 107.
Ayes 25, noes 7.
File item 108, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 109, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 110, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 111, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 112, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 113, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 114, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 115, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 116, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 117, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 118, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 119, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 120, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 121, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 122, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 123, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 124, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 125, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 126, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 127, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 128, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 129, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. File item 130, ayes 25, noes 7. The measure is adopted. Maybe there's a line for me after term limits.